What's up guys, this is Shirei talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the Romancing Festival Saruin banner that brings Saruin, a heavy damage dealer but also a leader for shadow squads, Firebringer, a debuffer but also party sustainer, and Orlouge, a full-time damage dealer for both shadow and heat. He can benefit from all two characters and the other ones can make different squads as well. Let's go straight out to our rs.xyz website. Starting with Saruin, he gives the name to the banner. He is a very good character with 125% STR and 132% intelligence. You can see that this character is in hybrid. He uses a great sword with the shadow element. You can make a triple S version right now in the game. He also has 101% endurance and 105% will for very safe values. Agility is 100%, that's a very good value as well. By being hybrid, he does not suffer, just loses love and charisma, and this barely affects anything. Moving on, reduces damage taken for the whole squad by 30%. He's giving a new defensive passive to everyone with no extra rules. He starts the fight with 16 BP because he really needs a lot of BP, and grants all surviving allies, including himself, a 50% increase to all shadow damage. Then on start of a turn, he gets another elemental enhanced shadow, this time only once per battle. So he himself has 100% damage increase and gives 50 to everyone. Then he grants all surviving allies this new passive called Chain of Grudge. One time, one turn. If you land a shadow attack, you'll be activating a 3 BP recovery and also will be granting all surviving allies, including yourself, a shadow attack boost of large effect for 2 turns. This will increase shadow damage by 45% for each of your characters that attack with shadow. So, if you have a full shadow squad, that value will scale super fast. And if you are attacking with 5 shadow damage dealers, somehow it's 225% damage increase. Since it lasts for 2 turns, in the next turn, well, some characters will get even higher values than this. So it's pretty nice because he already gives 50%. So you can reach 275% increase if you are using a full shadow squad by turn 2 alone. If all didn't attack, that is. Then his own shadow attack damage increases by 30%, his own slash attack damage increases by 30% as well, because he always has slash plus shadow. When landing an attack, he always changes with Sword of Saruin, that is an S power attack with slash and shadow damage, single target and indirect, so it won't be countered, and has a 50% chance to change with Finizona. Finizona is his skill number 3, that is very costly, 16 BP, it is fast, indirect as well, single target, slash and shadow damage. Before attacking, grants the enemy this shadow defense down and also a slash defense down for 1 turn. Each stack can reach as much as 35% defense down. So, in the case of Finizona itself, it has both elements, so you are looking on a 70% defense down to the enemy before you attack with a 4S power attack. That's why it's so strong. And if you're using him with other damage dealers that have both slash and shadow, they will also take a lot of benefits since this skill is fast and they will go after Saruin. But there's not that many characters that work like that, but the future version of Noel will be, again, slash and shadow. The past one was slash and heat, for example. But even if they just take benefit from either the shadow or the slash defense down, it's already 35% defense down. Now, besides that, he has intrinsic, so 20% damage increase at all times, 40% damage reduction when resisting, and a 37% chance to evade resisted attacks. Skill number 1 is Grudge's Slash, that is a shadow and slash attack. Now when a target is hit, it can debuff the intelligence by 15%. For just 1 BP power, it's amazing, and we do have very high intelligence, so this will likely not fail. And if you don't have enough BP, it's a good skill to use anyway. The second one is Saruin Sonic, it's the only physical skill. Grudge's Slash and Finizona are spell-based, so it's based on intelligence instead of STR. And it attacks 2 times with a row area and a power for 11 BP cost. This is used for farming if you want to farm, but it's restricted to areas where the enemies are in a row. It can also be used in the next Spiral Corridor, because the enemies will be aligned in a row as well. And 2 times a power equals triple S, and I do believe with triple S powers it will be similar to 4S final potential, so that's okay because it's still covering 2 elemental types. And it also works in the newest attacks where the enemy wants you to use sometimes skills, sometimes slashes, attacks, sometimes spell-based, so you are just having options for spell damage and physical type damage. So Saruin is good because he does have good enough damage potential by allowing everyone to also be stronger. He himself is always attacking with shadows, so he is also taking full benefit of this, recovering a lot of BP. As you can see, there's no other BP generation besides the start and the extra 3. He can trigger always at least more 3 when attacking, so if he gets 6 BP per turn, it would take ages for him to use Finizona. Yeah, every 3 turns, but he works well with BP batteries, especially if you want to use him with Monica, with Hardy, and the newest Shirei. The newest Shirei, it's better if you bring inheritance to Saruin. Well, first, the best inheritance to use is Wave of Malice from his past premium style, because this one is shadow based, it's spell as well, 7 BP, and before attacking grants another elemental enhance for shadow, increasing damage potential by 50%. You can use this 3 times per battle, reaching as much as 150% damage increase by turn 3 onwards. Remember that you still chase with Sword of Saruin, so even when using this skill, you're still doing enough damage. Also, after you use the attack, you get the 1 BP recovery by the end of turn. So, very fast, you actually get another 3 BP. So, instead of just getting 6, he's gonna get 9 BP per turn, and getting another 150% damage increase. But what is the final damage potential of this unit? Well, just from his own damage passives, he reaches 180 damage increase. If he has other characters in the party attacking with Shadow, then it increases by a lot more, at least 225. If he's just the only one using Shadow attacks, then he will get 45% for some attacks and another 90% for some others. Because remember that he always chases, he has another extra chance to chase. So the first hit, the first skill, you get just a 45% increase. The chains attacks, you get 90%. So that's still quite a lot. But you actually want to use Saruin if you have at least one more Shadow damage dealer, or if you want to take benefit of that Shadow and Slash defense down. But his damage is okay nonetheless, just cannot be compared to, you know, Slash damage when saying Kihachi. She is in the other banner, and Kihachi is such an amazing Slash damage dealer. They do work well together because she still does Slash and he still decreases Slash resistance, but she has her own methods to decrease the resistance of the enemy, meaning that, well, she's always the best Slash damage dealer. But Saruin works well with Shadow elements, and he can also make that newest Orlouge become much better, because Orlouge has Shadow and Heat attacks, so damage will increase by quite a lot, and both will help each other, since buffing Shadow damage to the squad buffs everyone. Now, is Saruin safe for the future? I'm not entirely sure about Shadow squads being meta, but you have to pursue some very specific characters to have a full Shadow squad. But it's not to say that he won't be useful in other situations where he's your only Shadow damage dealer, or maybe if you are running, for example, Paulus. I was using Paulus and I kind of forgot that his skill number 2 Earthquake Strike is Blunt and Shadow. And this is a 7 VP skill, he gets 5, and when he uses this 1 here, he actually gets 3 extra from Saruin. And it will also give 45% Shadow buff to every Shadow attacker. So, even in this point, he can also do more if he's chasing with Word Crasher. See how strange it is? Sometimes a character that we're not thinking about pairing up with Saruin can actually get much better. And now you have a full AoE buff break that can use it every turn without any extra help, and still increasing damage for both Saruin and to Paulus himself. Another recent example will be Leonid, but Leonid is not really a meta character. It's good to use, but it's also not someone that people will be using all the time. He has Shadow with all of his attacks, and just don't forget about Rock Bouquet. She's still meta and can be used in some fights, and she has Shadow in all of her skills, besides the first, yes. So that you can actually use them together to increase damage even further. And she also has some problems with BP generation. Maybe he'll fix her problems. So in the end, this guy is good. I think that Saruin deserves a 4.5 out of 5 by being a very strong damage dealer. It is somewhat skippable because it's not to say that he's mandatory. He won't be ever mandatory. It's just someone that will make stuff easier when you need to hit hard with Slash or Shadow, and if you can bring other characters that can take benefit of the Shadow damage increase, and also the extra BP generation. So, a good character to have, and I even pulled it for him because I want to test Shadow Squads. The next character will be Firebringer, and we have here 130% STR and 120% intelligence. As you can see, similar design to Saruin, but it's this case of debuffing and not doing elemental spell damage. Then we have 100% endurance and 102% will, very safe values, alongside 90% agility that could be better for a debuffer, and 30 levels of love and charisma. Now, starts the fight giving all surviving allies a 50% increase for heat damage, grants himself Servant Assistant for 1 turn, that buffs all of his status by 15%, then when landing an attack, will debuff the target STR and intelligence by 10%, just for that turn, turn 1. It's because he actually wants to use skill number 2, Servant Emerge, that can only be used once per battle. It's a 8 power attack with 10 VP cost, that's right, a little too costly. Before attacking, he grants another stack of Servant Assist, that will be for the whole fight, so you will then only be able to use this on the next one. And then I think you get under 50% elemental heat damage, and then launches the attack. I'm not so sure if this will work in this turn because it's a star of turn. At least you're going to get the extra debuff. So you'll be debuffing 20% on turn 1 for STR and intelligence. The problem is the cost that is a little too high. Then, on the start of a turn, he grants all surviving allies this Scarlet Power. When landing an attack, you will buff all of your status by 20% if it's an heat elemental attack. Then we'll also recover HP by around 250 and 1 point of BP. So Firebringer is a fire leader for fire squads. The problem is that I don't think that his buffs are as good as Saruin's. Saruin gives you a type of damage buff that cannot be removed. Shadow attack damage increase cannot be removed, while status buff can be removed. Sometimes we may already have enough healing and just 1 BP instead of 3. I really believe that this is the inferior version of the leader effect. Still not bad, and if you can buff in a fight, 20% buff just by attacking is nice, and you still get at least 1 extra BP when landing heat attacks. Just remember that it cannot be triggered more than once. Then he also grants just himself 50% chance to get chain attack for 2 turns. That will allow him to chase with the attack called Flame Servant. It's an S power attack, single target that has slash and heat damage, and there's a chance to debuff the STR and intelligence of the enemy by 10%. So that is the same skill that he had in his past limited style as a guaranteed chase, and he also had a chance to chase 2 times. So that was really useful for debuffing, and sometimes you didn't have enough intelligence to debuff enemies. I remember having to use the Rising Phoenix EX formation, place Firebringer in the center to fight Firebringer, and I was not able to debuff all the time. So now we have higher intelligence, 20% higher, so this can work. The problem is that it is just a 50% chance to get a chase that lasts for 2 turns. Much like the latest Ellen, you can actually chase 2 times if you happen to trigger this stance on turn 1 and then again on turn 2. So, on the average, you get 1 chase every, I don't know, turn. Like 10 turns you get 10 chases for the calculation, but it's not reliable. That's something that needs to be considered. Then he also has a 37% chance to enter a full evasive stance that lasts for 1 turn. That's nice, he already had that in his past style. By the end of a turn, if he's dead, he will revive with around 2000 HP, unless it's poison damage. Start of turn, recovers 2 BP, so a 5 EP per turn character, and grants all surviving allies a defense boost that decreases damage taken by 15%, but he will also grant this defense up that decreases damage taken by 5% for the whole fight, max of 3 times, so you get 5 stacks of 5% and 1 stack of 15 every turn. So Saruin decreases damage taken by 30%, it's just 1 stack, it has higher value than everything that Firebringer has here combined, but it still works somehow. By turn 3 you have all the effects. Then he gets 20% damage increase. When attacked, damage taken will be reduced by 30%, and if you are resisting, it will be decreased by now 40%. So can decrease damage taken by quite a lot, can enter full evasive stance. Damage is much lower than Saruin, it's not even comparable, but if you are bringing other hit damage dealers, you may actually have some good effects. Going for skill number 1, Flame Wall Slash, we have a single target attack with slash and heat that is also fast for 1 DP, deep power, and grants Ward Up Small that decreases damage taken by 12% for that turn. Then we have also the third skill, Scarlet Shadow Slash, that is fast as well, single target, and slash and heat. Grants all surviving allies a Ward Up Large, decreases damage taken by 35% just for that turn alone, but also Phantom, that gives you a 25% chance to evade enemy attacks. That's actually pretty nice for 10 BP, but damage is pretty low with just S power. And this is something that we have seen in other characters. I remember seeing this on Melissa. Melissa has it with her skill number 3, that was not that great because it was just a raw attack with Phantom. But the best character that can use this is Acelus, and she can do it with her very useful skill 3 that has 11 BP cost but gives 1 BP back, and for everyone else as well, buffs all status by 25% and also gives Phantom. If you happen to be able to use both together, you can actually get very good chances of evading, especially if you are also using Empress. Remember that the latest Empress has that skill, Karatsu Styria Blade, that guarantees 1 evasion and a 25% chance to evade when you are on full HP. So stacking many chances to evade can be good, but just by itself 25% is pretty unreliable. But since you have that Ward Up Large, you are decreasing damage taken nonetheless. The character has at least 5 EP per turn, but usually 6, because you attack and you get 1 BP. Sometimes 7 if you chase once, and even 8 if you chase 2 times. Okay, so while this character will help too much, I don't think that Firebringer will help as much as Saruin in a squad that is made of full elemental, but he can also be used just as a debuffer if you want, but you have to play with RNG, and as a character that can also give you defenses. But look, there is something interesting as well to be discussed. If you have his first premium style, this style is still okay, because, well, it does have the 37% chance to evade, it does have that extra BP when attacking with heat, damage won't be that great, but if you inherit that skill Servant Emerge, you will then have now Servant Assist, that will debuff the enemy's STR and intelligence by 10%, and also buff your status every turn. And now, he has Flame Servant as guarantee, so the skill that you are using, you already debuffed by 10, and your first chase, instead of debuffing just 10, now will be debuffing 20. So you have a guarantee 30% STR and intelligence debuff when using any type of skill. If you get the second chase, that you can see here, you have a 50% chance too. You will then debuff 50%. Now, you still have Scarlet Firebringer Blade that applies morale down medium, decreasing the damage from source by 25%. It lasts for 3 turns and you won't have any type of BP problem. You can also use Guard Up Large with a heal, just once. It's an emergency button. So, as a full-time debuffer, it's usually better to use the first Firebringer with the Inheritance. If you want to use this one, well, this one here won't debuff as much. And you can still run this Firebringer with the Inheritance of Scarlet Firebringer Blade. I believe this is the best Inheritance to apply the morale down medium, that decrease damage taken by 25%, since you now have other ways to decrease damage taken. Via the defense boost every turn, and 5% from defense up, multiplied by 3. Well, he is better defensively, but he's not a better debuffer than the first version of Firebringer with the inheritance. So I believe that you now have different ways to use the character, and I still don't think that Firebringer as a whole is a must-have. He is a good character that will work when you want to debuff by use of both styles combined. A good style to be used when you have other fire attackers, especially people like Asper. Asper is a very good character even now in the game, and she will get better because she has BP problems here and there. Keep using her debuff with Witch Streak, but it's not like you really need to have Firebringer to make those strategies work. But if you get him, he's a very nice style, and I believe he deserves a 4 out of 5 in my new grading system. And just before we go, I think that Firebringer also works super well with Apollo. Remember that Apollo attacks multiple times, has hit damage. Also works a lot with Noel. Noel has hit damage as well, and can attack multiple times, alongside buffing STR when being hit. So, another very good character to use as a companion. And the last character will be Orlouge. And Orlouge has 100% endurance and 110% will, very good defenses, much like the other two characters. And here we have 105% agility, that is okay. We have 132% intelligence for damage. As you can see, we have higher love and charisma because Orlouge is not a hybrid. He does not need to use STR or dexterity. Moving on, starts the fight with 14 BP and grants itself a permanent chase with Dark Flare. Dark Flare is a triple S power attack with shadow and heat damage. And you can also give another chain attack, Dark Flare, with 50% chance. This chain attack will last for 3 turns. So, much like Ellen, much like Firebringer, it's unreliable, but when it triggers, you can trigger as much as 3 times in a row for 3 extra Dark Flares. But if RNG is not on your side, you may not get it sometimes and be a little angry about it, but look on this. If you have 1 Dark Flare alongside another 3, well, damage is gonna be very high. Besides, on the start of a turn, Grant has a 50% chance to grant an attack boost. 50% lasts for 3 turns, so you can also stack this. And also has a 37% chance to enter a full evasive stance, much like Firebringer. By the end of a turn, always gets 2 BP, but once per battle, we recover 9. This is important to keep high damage on start, but also to make Orlouge our farmer. That's right, Orlouge can be a farmer. Now, start of turn grants himself a weak hit up that increases damage potential by 50% when landing weak attacks, max of 4 times per battle for a total of 200% damage increase. Then we have another 30% when attacking with staves, and 30% damage reduction at all times. So, skill 1 is Blaze Absorb. It's a single target attack with just 1 BP cost. E power though, but recovers the user's HP by around 1.2 thousand or more. That's a lot of healing for just 1 BP. And it's also Shadow and Heat like all of his attacks. The second one means Stress Deadly Fire. It's a full AoE attack that attacks 3 times with D power and has a 12 BP cost. 3 times with D power, it's higher than 4S power in the end if you're using triple S weapon. It is super strong and it's useful for grinding. Yes, you can bring this Orlouge to any stage where you have multiple enemies weak to Shadow or Heat. He will kill them all with ease. So use the Godspeed stance formation and you can use this skill 2 times in a row because of that extra 9 BP recovery. So, even when you are in a fight like in Spiral and there are more than 1 enemies, you're going to do a lot of damage because of this. Especially if Orlouge is paired up with Saruin. It will increase his damage output by quite a lot. With Firebringer, he also gets a little. But if the fight does not allow you to buff, you're going to lose your buffs and you just get 1 extra BP, while Saruin gives 3 points of BP and shadow damage increase. So, very nice to pair Orlouge with at least one of them. Then we have Refined Black. That is the same skill that Igomol has. It's a single target shadow and heat attack with 6 hits of E power. but 13 BP cost. This also allows you to grind stages that are weak to either shadow and heat, and just one enemy, so you can use Refined Black 2 times in a row. It deals insane amounts of damage. 4 hits with E power is already 4S final damage, so you can see that you have even extra damage here. And you still have to remember that any of his attacks will still chase at least once with Dark Flare, sometimes twice, thrice, or even 4 times if you have very good RNG. So damage of Orlouge can reach very good potential, and like I said, especially if you have Saruin, and the next Spiral Corridor floor will have multiple enemies, and they will be weak to Shadow, hence why Orlouge will shine, like people are saying. It's not like Orlouge is mandatory, and his farming potential is nice and all, but it's not like we need more farmers as well. But this character is very useful for people that are starting now and can get Saruin, and even increases damage output and reach the max potential. As for inheritance, there's nothing that really makes much difference, but you can inherit from the last premium style. This drop of the depth, because it has many different ailments, and you can use it in many different remembrance fights. So he can be also your status inflictor, but also a damage dealer. This skill that has damage block will be interesting, but I don't see many reasons to use. And you can use Absorb, that is 2BP, and also buffs intelligence instead of just healing. But all the other things just don't matter as much. You don't want him to taunt, and the other effects are already on the last premium style, unless you don't have any and you want to use the Confusion via S style that can be gotten from the Remembrance shop, or even Paralyze if you want. As a whole, this Orlouge will be just a damage dealer, so it's easier to replace him than, for example, Saruin, that can be used for a longer time, since he is also helping the party. He already decreases the damage for everyone by 30%, even if you're not considering his shadow damage increase. While Orlouge is here for pure damage, it is very strong, but it's also very easy to power creep. Hence why, although I believe that Orlouge now is better than Firebringer, because Firebringer needs 2 style to be on full potential, I think they in the end deserve the same grading. I'll be giving him a 4 out of 5, and also say that if you don't get him, you are not missing much. Even though he makes some fights easier, it's not mandatory. He's just a very strong character, nice to have, but will be power cracked. Now, going back to the banner image, is this banner worth summoning for? Well, I believe yes. Because of the other banner being better, it's still hard to recommend. But it's more of a case of having 2 very good banners together instead of saying that the banner is bad. Hence why I believe this banner deserves a Silver Plus award. I was a little conflicted into giving it a gold minus, but in the end, I think that since it's still a banner that is easier to skip than going after Shirei and Kihachi, well, we need to make a difference between those 2 banners, and grading is how we can explain how one is better than the other. And the other banner has 4 styles instead of 3, and Shirei and Kihachi are just very, very good. They are better than Saruin and Firebringer for sure. But if you have the gens and you like the character, you're gonna have some fun using them. Especially Saruin being the first more interesting character, and then about either Firebringer or Orlouge. But if you get Saruin too fast, you should drop the banner, in my opinion, and wait for the next announcements. I pulled it here, got Saruin Firebringer into multis and stopped it, didn't want to move forward. Hope you guys got better luck than me, but what's your opinion? Say here on the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and if you want to support the channel, click the links on the description. I hope to see you soon on the next one. Goodbye.